Anyone and any agent at any agency that's telling you, I can get someone a film, is telling you lies. I don't think today you can get any actor a job that a filmmaker doesn't think he or she is right for.
Ananya's somebody who's been, the kind of films that she's done, she's been able to tell the world that she's an actor first as well. She has been able to get a lot of international brands.
I wish actors were a little more realistic and a little less delusional. Ambition is not a bad thing, delusion is. There was a film that we chased after with one actor. We really chased after this film. There was another actor attached, but we really wanted to do it because we really believed in the script. And a year later, it really turned out to be not a great film. And we looked at each other and we were like, what were we thinking?
I don't think there is any science to trolling. You know, you can be trolled for anything. And I think you have to be very unapologetic to back the choices that made you do that film.
I think the way forward is going to be self-censorship, because it's no longer just about will you be cancelled, it's a threat to your life now. Yeah. Practically, you want to work, you want to earn a living, you want to be alive.
Hi Uday, hi Rajeev.
Hi,
welcome to THR Buzz.
Hello, thank you.
We are at this amazing DCA office, which is possibly the epicenter of all things Bollywood, if I can call it that.
I suppose, yeah.
The corridor of power.
The corridor of power.
Too bad you've got us at a time when the place is sort of, when everyone's out and the less busier part of the day.
The corridor is quiet.
Yes.
But, just to sort of give me a sense, what does a typical day at DCA look like? And did something extraordinary happen today that surprised you?
I think firstly, it's never ending. The day doesn't end. But yeah, I think we have a very eventful day every day. We manage a lot of actors, so we are in the thick of things, and there is something or the other happening in their lives professionally, and sometimes with a lot of social media chatter that we are quite busy with a lot of stuff.
Yeah, no 2 days are the same. Firefighting is a big part, I would say, of the job. And typically, it's trying to salvage some situation. Today, we found out that one of our actors didn't land the film that we had our heart set on. So that's one part of it. The other part was that one actor who was trying to manage to squeeze in 3 films in the same 1 month period. We've succeeded in that. So there's something to smile about and something to not smile about.
Yeah.
But that's typically it. I think firefighting is a big part of it, because when you're representing about 40 actors, then there's something that's good, happens in everyone's lives. There's something that needs to be fixed. There's something that needs to be addressed. There's something that needs to be corrected. There's something that needs to be salvaged. And that's pretty much, I think, what a day in one's life is. While, of course, the broader role being trying to find them opportunities which will just, help them get to the next stage of their careers.
So help me understand here. If my mother when she watches this episode, how will you explain it to her? What exactly talent management involves? What does it involve behind the scene?
I think it would be about helping them helping them plot their professional career through the acting choices that they make in films and shows, increasingly through the brand choices that they make, and through any other revenue generating jobs that they may take. While the larger, of course, the macro thing being, how are we plotting a career? How are we helping sort of take a direction which the actor believes they want to go in? And all of that is done through the choices you make. So bringing some bringing some options to them. A big part of any actor's career and is about saying no. So really strategizing with them, helping them understand what is, it's not actually for them, but it's with them. Sort of sitting with them and understanding what are the choices that are going to help us reach where we want to go, and what are the choices that may come in the way of that. So sort of sitting and I think what they said right at the start is true. It's the trust, because none of that comes without being completely in sync and on the same page with what they want. Having complete trust where you have an open dialogue. a big part of the job is having the tough conversations, and all of that is sort of
Tough conversations like meaning?
why one may not be in consideration for a job that one really wants. Very often, a producer will tell you, a director will tell you things that they may not necessarily tell the actor, and you have to communicate that, perhaps with kid gloves sometimes.
I think it's also to highlight perception and perspective. Sometimes somebody needs the perspective, and sometimes one operates from perception. So I think it's a tricky part that we have to often sort of bring it on the table. And a lot of no's, like Rajeev said. I think the win is in the no's. How many times you say no, and what you say no to. What is the logic and the reason behind saying no?
Yeah. What are the ego management skills required to be a talent manager?
Leave your own ego first at the door. Absolutely, rule 101. No pride, no ego. You're no longer the star of your own life. I think those are the things that I learned pretty early
absolutely.
on.
Bang on. And I think
No
he's learned
main character energy for you, yeah.
And really, I think, believe in, if you don't love them, you have to really love them. I understand now what Shah Rukh Khan used to say. It's a completely different, in a completely different way. But he said, I can't work with directors that I don't love. And I used to keep wondering what he means by love. But I get it. You're so intimate. This relationship can be so intimate that if you don't, the amount, the extent to which you're going to have to root for them and cheer for them and make things happen for them, if you don't love them and of course believe in them, that's for granted. But if you don't love them, I think it's hard to. So really kind of find
Accept
it's not hard to love them, because I mean, if they understand that you're you're invested in them in this way, they're obviously kindly disposed towards you. But I think really sort of believe in them 360 degree to really commit your life to them.
Yeah, no. But then in that sense, Uday and Rajeev, what is a work crisis like? What could classify as, oh, okay, this is a crisis?
Actors by nature are dramatic. I think a work calamity is what you asked, a work crisis.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it's, on one day it could be an actor who arrives for a brand shoot 2 hours late but still wants to leave at the time that she's meant to or he's meant to. And you have a brand that's going like, how could you expect to leave at 6 o'clock if she came 2 hours late, and negotiating that and figuring out a way and or a crisis is when I don't know, I mean, like a price renegotiation. Sometimes we're in a climate of filmmaking where where things are not what they used to be. One has committed to a certain price, an actor wants to filmmaker wants to renegotiate a price. Whose interests are very often you'll find yourself conflicted about trying to get your actor the best deal, and is that in conflict with doing what is best perhaps for that film? And it's very important to remember that you work for talent, and in the best case scenario you're able to find that sweet spot where you're able to work for talent in a way that isn't in conflict with what the project and the film requires.
Right.
But that's not always the case.
Yeah.
Also, sometimes an actor wants a favor from a brand, or an actor wants something, and we are very often, we find ourselves in a situation where, while the actor wants this to be done, or a favor, or a particular, something that they want from a brand, and the same brand has been crying and shouting and wanting the actor to do a deliverable that's on that contract that they've signed, and they don't move on that, but suddenly you feel like somebody wants somebody wants an IPL ticket, or somebody wants something, and then suddenly the amount of love and respect that the actor suddenly grows for the brand, and then suddenly the same people who are not responding to a particular ask from a brand have to then we literally change like chameleons, and we then go back and we have to do that. Many a time. So
there's never a dull day when you're working with actors.
It sounds like
there's never a dull day.
Yeah.
No 2 days are the same.
But guys, in terms of casting, how do you, from the pool of talent that you have, how do you decide that if you have a particular project on board that this suits this particular actor or that one? What's that internal call like?
Typically there's a film let's take a case. There's a film that's announced, and you know that there is a role for an actor in her 20s, mid 20s, and say we represent 4 or 5 in that space, and The job is to pitch all of them. We have a team that works with all actors. We have agents for every actor. We have a casting agent for every actor. So the job is to pitch every single one of them. But anyone and any agent at any agency that's telling you, I can get someone a film, is telling you lies. I don't think today you can get any actor a job that a filmmaker doesn't think he or she is right for. So really you can push all your actors for a job, and then the filmmaker may decide, I like two of them. And then you explain that, listen, the filmmaker doesn't think that, to the other three, that this is gone. And then you push those two, and anyone who's saying that they've got you a gig is wrong. It really is the filmmaker who thinks you're right for the job, and that's why he's selecting you for the job. But you cannot discriminate, because if five of them are right for it, you want to push five of them. You want every one of them to have that opportunity. And this is something that I'm guessing all agencies sort of deal with, because everyone's representing multiple actors, which is why you create teams of managers and agents that are so committed to so committed to their particular artist that they're doing whatever they can to push that artist.
Right.
But eventually the decision is always going to be the filmmakers, and let no one tell you otherwise.
So the agents also compete among
Absolutely.
themselves.
Yeah,
They have to.
Yeah.
What Rajeev mentioned in the beginning, I think our day also goes, we also spend a lot of our time in troubleshooting and actually sometimes being referees with teams that are extremely invested in their respective actors.
Yeah.
And they will go to very many and to very, very, they will go to any length to sort of, secure the project for them and stuff. And this is not just for films. I think this is for brands as well. This is actually all pervasive. It's at all levels.
Right. But I mean, Rajeev, is there would you be more inclined when a project comes your way? Is there a barometer okay, this is a more Alia project, this is a more Ananya project, or more Janvi? Do you have internal sort of markings for that?
You read a script and you may think that this is, someone would be right for this or wrong for this, but it's not your job to eliminate anyone on the basis of your prejudice. Your job is to, at least at my position, I'm not agenting any one actor specifically. So it's not my job to focus on one over the other, or to be preferential of one over the other. In fact, it's my job to identify the 4 or 5 that perhaps would be right for that, and make sure that all of their teams are aware that there is this gig. But that's the case where there's a job that's up for grabs. More often than not, there's a job that comes to you because a certain filmmaker wants X person for that job, and it's your job to facilitate that meeting or that exchange. And for whatever reason, if that doesn't work out, you do want to push someone else who may be right for it, who perhaps the filmmaker wasn't thinking of originally, because he had his heart set on a particular actor. But you might have an option, since the first one isn't able to do it because dates aren't there, or isn't as excited as the filmmaker is about doing that gig, or for whatever reason can't do that. Then you'd want to push. I mean, you want to make sure every job comes in house. And often that doesn't happen. Very often you have a roster, and still none of your artists are what that filmmaker's looking for, and that can be heartbreaking, because you're like, one of them could have got it. You always want the right person to land the right job, but I think that's the responsibility of the filmmaker, because only he knows who is really the right person for the right job.
Right. No, I hear this one actor who's extremely popular with the ladies. He has a huge female fan following, but is known to be lazy. Now, what I hear is also that you guys kept pitching him ideas, kept pitching him films, but he just wouldn't respond on time to the feedback, and the producers kept waiting, and at some point the producers went to someone else. Is the turnaround time to close a deal really that difficult in some cases? Are there days when an actor just doesn't respond, even though you believe in the script and you want him there, but he or she will not care enough?
Well, then you're not doing your job very well. If you're not able to get a response, and it doesn't have to mean that the response is going to be positive, but there needs to be some response. You need to make sure that the actor is aware of this film or this gig that's up for grabs. And if it's gone because the actor didn't respond in time, or didn't even take a look at it in time, then that's your failure. I'd like to think that doesn't really happen. I think it's easy to, I think from the looking in from the outside, it's easy to think that if someone hasn't, I want to say this, and I think it's the truth, that actors don't like to ruffle feathers, right? There'll be a time, maybe he didn't like it, but he doesn't want to say that, and he's, for whatever reason, not responded. maybe not, a lot of people might think that's not the way to do it, but that is sometimes. I mean, different actors respond differently. I also want to say actors are really hungry. It's very, very unlikely. As lazy as you may be, I don't think I think most actors are really, really very cutthroat about their careers. I don't think anyone's going to not respond to a script that's come your way or an inquiry that's come your way because you're lazy or because you're lethargic. That's very unlikely. That may be the narrative people like to take about actors, but I think actors are really smart. Their world, as they should, revolves around. They also understand that you have youth is currency in this business. So if you're going to waste those years, it's costing you.
It'll go away. Yeah. What are the ways in which they say no, though?
I think they haven't the way those words and those things haven't changed. Dates are a very very important ally for us. We sometimes have to use the dates card. But I think the producer or the director will also sense this, and I think we're also now moving towards a place where people understand. And I think there's nothing wrong if somebody is not if somebody is not invested in your idea. Then it's best that you hear it and you live with it and not have not make a big issue out of it, and then get another chance to work with the same person.
Yeah.
It's interesting because Uday's right. No one wants to. No, it's the no's are. It's always unpleasant saying no because you're breaking someone's heart, and most people don't want to hear no. Of course, everyone thinks that they've come with the best thing since sliced bread to you. Recently, there was an actor who had received an offer to do this film in which he plays a young sort of young heartthrob, and he'd played the young heartthrob unfortunately too many times, and he said, should I just blame it on dates? I'm like, you know what, they're gonna know. Today people are smart. I think it's probably a good idea to just be honest and say, listen, I don't want to play the young heartthrob anymore. I really want to work with you, but I want to grow up. I'm now positioning myself like a man, and I think and that's where you come in, right? You want to you have to say no, but you'd like to try to not you'd like to try to make sure that relationship is protected rather than, say something which the other person doesn't want to hear or lie, which will get caught out. You want to try to be honest as far as you can. And I have to tell you, there are enough times when you're being honest and people don't appreciate the honesty. It does work very often, and there are times when it doesn't work. So which is why I think, most actors would prefer to choose the white lie. It's about figuring how hard and how badly the other person is going to take it.
Yeah. Can you sniff a bad script? And A and B, has it ever happened that you gave the feedback that, hey, this is not a good script, but the talent was adamant that I still want to do it, and the film or the project doesn't land? What happens then?
I think many a times we're able to do that, and I think one of the jobs that we have is to ensure that we give our true feedback to the talent, and that's how you build trust with the talent. In case the film does not do well, then of course, it's not something that we go and we celebrate with the talent. But I think our job is I think those are again certain things that we take pride in, because if the artist listens to us, it also is testament to the fact that they also trust in us, and hence it becomes very important to give the feedback.
Right.
I think the background that I came from, I think it's easy to read a script and say whether it's good writing or not. But I do want to say that there's a big difference between what's a good film and what's a successful film.
Right.
And also a big difference between what's on the page and what's on the screen.
Right.
There was a film that we chased after with one actor. We really chased after this film. There was another actor attached, but we really wanted to do it because we really believed in the script. And a year later, it really turned out to be not a great film. And we looked at each other and we were like, what were we thinking? We hunted this down. And in that exact case, it was a good script that wasn't directed as well. Other times, you will make a bad judgment call. You'll think it has potential, and maybe it just never did have the potential to begin with.
Yeah.
I also want to say, I don't think you're giving way too much importance to agents if you're insinuating that an actor is saying yes to a job that they don't believe in because their agent is pushing them to do it. I don't think any actor at any agency is listening to any agent over their own voice. I think we live in times when we encourage, and they're constantly encouraged to develop their own instinct and choose gigs that they genuinely believe in and speaks to them. It's great if you have that relationship with your agent where your agent is able to see the same thing that you're able to see in a script. And also, there are times when you do films. I came from I like you just, I came from from a journalism background where I really believe that you try to pick the best stuff, but I think best is subjective, and I think sometimes you pick a gig because actors do films for various reasons, and if we are able to understand that, sometimes you're doing a film with a certain actor because it positions you as a hot young leading lady.
Yeah.
Sometimes you're doing a film. It's not. Is it the best film in the world? No, but it's giving me something which I haven't been able to crack otherwise. So I think if one were to keep all those things considered, if you know why you've done a certain film, then maybe you won't be drastically surprised by the results.
Right.
But yes, if you put your heart and soul into something that felt right on paper and it doesn't turn out to be, then it's heartbreaking.
But we live in the times of intense social media scrutiny. When a film which has DCA talent, for example, tanks, and that person at the helm of it, who was headlining the film, gets trolled, what does that do to the agency or to the agent? Do you guys then have a conversation? Because trolling and extreme intense scrutiny has pretty much become a part of the ecosystem. What happens then?
Firstly, I don't think there is any science to trolling. You can be trolled for anything. And I think you have to be very unapologetic in your, at least to back the choices that made you do that film. Again, like I said, I think the idea is to then ensure that you're able to recover from this and show up again.
I think trolling's ugly and no one likes it, but I also do think that actors are quite prepared for it now. You live in a culture where it's happening every day, and it's happening. So it's so often happening unfairly that you kind of know how to take. You just develop a thick skin. Having said that, yes, it's heartbreaking when it's especially connected to a choice that you made, right? A film that, like you said, a film that you acted in that tanked. What does it say? It says that you made a wrong choice. You made a bad choice. That's the word on the street, right? I think it's important to rally around your actor at a time like that. Remind them that that all is not lost. I also think we are in a culture where we're in an ecosystem where I don't think one failure today makes or breaks a career.
Sure.
Perhaps that used to be the case a long time ago. I don't think that's the case anymore.
Right.
It's about also sifting through all the opinions that are coming your way, right? If it's just ugly trolling for where there's not a lot of constructive stuff, then it's actually hard to take something away from that. But the important thing, and perhaps you need a little bit of time and a little bit of distance because it's raw when it's in live,
right,
when it's happening in real time. The important thing is to sort of perhaps take in some of that feedback, incorporate it in your way forward. I don't think you can completely disregard trolling because that would be like sort of the ostrich that buries its head in the sand. It's important to listen to what people are saying, but take what is constructive, and disregard what is not. Because the truth is, there's a lot of surround sound that you do have to cut out and focus on what feels authentic and what can actually help you, perhaps improve your choices or just improve your skills.
Yeah, but Rajeev, in that moment, is an actor able to figure that this is a constructive criticism or versus this is trolling? Because I believe it is difficult because they might think everything is trolling and
in that moment you can't. In that moment, everything feels personal, everything feels unfair, and it's the same thing, right? Just I used to review films, and when I reviewed films for a living, no filmmaker in that moment wants to believe that this is fair critique. Everyone thinks, oh, they've got it in for me, and it's no different for actors. It's so much more personal when it's when it's
we also
when it's
see their
directed at
journey, we
actors.
see the hard work that they put in. So it is definitely it's a bit of a heartbreak for them as well. And when somebody's just going to pick up something and just go on about it and troll you, I think then it does become it can become a little irritating and you sort of get affected a little bit.
But from an agency point of view, I mean, if there is a person who's being quote unquote trolled, when you move forward with reading the next round of scripts for that same actor, is there a strategy difference then? That can we maybe look at it differently? This person has taken a hit in this image. What can we do to turn it around? I'm sure that's also part of.
No, I think it's because the filmmaking and emotions and emoting something is has to be pious. I don't think a feedback of the trolling or social media is going to really change the way an actor is going to read a script, or an actor is going to respond to a script, or we will form an opinion for or against. I also feel that these are the things that, like Rajeev said, these are the things that now everybody's immune to. There is this noise that's going to be there. It's not going to leave you for the good and the bad. So we have to just sort of self-immune ourselves to this.
Yeah, I don't think strategy can and should come before instinct. So yes, you feel like you've learned all of these things, but when you're reading something and it speaks to you, I mean, that's probably and should be the reason why you are responding to it. So I don't think you can take it seriously beyond a point while it's debilitating while it's happening. It can be cruel and it can be harsh, and it is. I think it's important to view it from the lens of that moment and kind of be able to then detach from it and start almost afresh with instinct leading the way.
You know, the talking point in the industry for a while has been, a lot of producers have said that the entourage cost, the issue of entourage cost, actually traces back to a lot of management agencies. They are the ones who push this package, and then we are all suffering. Is that a fair criticism?
No, I don't think so. I think that we've also evolved as an agency. We're also doing the kind of stuff that we're doing, and I think professionalism has crept into every department and every level of filmmaking. If it's fair to, and I'm not at all defending the entourage, but I think that if it's fair to an actor having, if a brand or a film wants a particular look, and you really want the best for the job, then the best is going to come at some cost. I personally do feel that everything is a function of very, very good negotiations, and there should be no blackmailing or no nobody should take somebody. You cannot have those etched in stone names or quotes. But other than that, I think that if you want the best, then you also have to pay for the best. But yes, certain things, and again, it's a function of, sometimes you will encounter a very stubborn team and stuff, but I don't think it's a sweeping sort of a general statement in that sense.
You, Rajeev?
I think it reveals a chink in the system. I was in a meeting with the Producers Guild of India, who raised this issue and said that it's becoming out of hand, and they called for a meeting of all agency heads. And it's funny how every one of us said the same thing. It's in your hands. Unite and say we will not pay. Say we will cap costs. They were not able to do it because there's no unity among the producers. And until you don't achieve that, you're not going to be able to take a stand, because I do think that costs have spiraled sometimes irrationally. I do think that if hair and makeup is getting paid more than the editor of a film or a writer of a film, that's a problem.
No, I agree, and I think that negotiations then come into play. But you're right. You're right.
And I think actors need to take a stand. I think, but really, the ball finally is in the court of the producers. They need to unite and say, we're not going to encourage this. Having said that, I agree with Uday that the best technicians. I mean, if the best DOPs get paid crores of rupees, there's no reason why the best makeup person. I think there's also this tendency for us to disregard HMU as, but this is just hair and makeup. That's also unfair. But yes, I mean, if editors and DOPs are being paid less than hair and makeup people, there is some introspection that is required. But it's really the producers to say who have to cap it.
I think the producers and the whole guild needs to unite first, and and really know what they feel is the cap, the ideal cap that does not really change or affect the budget of the film. And then I think our job becomes much more easier, because if you're going to, this cannot be pinned on an actor or an agency. I think we need to just fix this in the system first, fundamentally, and then look at. But yes, if there is a very, very high cost attached to entourage, I do feel that it's something that should be corrected.
Yeah, fair enough. So much of your job is also, of course, brands, getting these actors lucrative big brands. I really want to know, how do you sort of figure who gets what? In the last few years, truly Ananya Pandey has been sort of this sensation who rose despite then struggling with some of the films that she was doing. I remember Liger, when it dropped, a lot of people were sort of criticizing Ananya, and there were a lot of trolls. But in the last 2 years, there has been a humongous makeover, and certainly brands have been a huge part of it. How do you decide who gets what, and what is the sort of strategy there?
I don't think we decide who gets what, but I think we pitch, and I think that everybody has a set or an evolving attribute set, and I think that we pitch to, and again, I think this is something where you pitch to certain brands, you're able to make a very strong case for A, B, and C, and then basis their trajectory, what they're doing, what kind of films release, a little bit of PR strategy, also in terms of where they are, what they're doing on their social media. I think all these small things play a role, and then eventually a brand then decides who would be able to carry forward their message. Ananya is somebody who's been who's the kind of films that she's done, the urban films that she's done. And also I think we've been able to, or rather she's been able to tell the world that she's an actor first as well. So she has been able to get a lot of international brands.
Yeah.
And the kind of brand that the communication is very, very Gen Z, very, very urban, very, very young.
Yeah, I think what this thing is absolutely. I think it's not very unlike films. I think brands know who they want, what they want, who's right for it in terms of who's right for their brand image, and who's who represents the qualities that the brand stands for. A big part of that is success.
Yeah.
It's more often than not it's success. So someone that's doing well will be will be right on top of the charts. Someone that represents the demographic that you're catering to, and I think that is. Certainly the case with Ananya. I think between Call Me Bae and Control and the kind of films and the kind of acting gigs she's taken, and just the fact that she represents and she talks to a generation of younger people. There is her So Positive initiative, which is about which is sort of
Truly.
talking directly to the youth that are on social media and addressing things like trolling and online bullying.
Yeah.
I think these are things that brands have certainly taken note of, and they understand that she speaks to a generation. She has access to a generation that they definitely want to to cater to, and I think that's where it's a lot of Ananya's success self-built, because these are ideas that these are things that have come from her. Authenticity, I think, is what brands are seeking, and they can smell it when it's not. And I think that's truly it. I think the brands know who they want, and certainly someone that's having a great career can't hurt.
Are influencers a threat to actors who are, let's say, quote unquote, in mid-sized to small scale films? Is it really a thing that the more following you have on Instagram, that dictates an easier entry into a film casting? Is that how it also works when you're managing them?
If we understand that the film business is unfortunately doing so poorly that filmmakers are throwing everything at the wall and seeing what sticks. And in that, I definitely think that there have been times when they've cast influencers because of the perceived sort of audience that they talk to.
Correct.
But I think that a lot of those have failed because those have not been influencers who can act. The success of someone like Bhuvan Bam proves that you have to also it's not enough to just merely be able to be talking to a large audience, but he's talking to that large audience because he's actually someone who's quite creative. I mean, if you see Taza Khabar, the show that he does, it's very creative. He's a fine actor. He's actually someone who's able to play. I mean, even if you saw his sketches that he used to do, BB Ki Vines, I mean, you can see that he's someone who is playing multiple characters. Yeah. So I don't think you can merely be an influencer in that you are not an actor. Are a lot of influencers good actors? Clearly they're becoming, and clearly that's the ambition for a lot of the influencers. They're all taking acting classes. They're all want to be. I mean, I know that a lot of influencers, some of the biggest names that you talk about came wanted to be signed up with DCA saying we want to become actors. I mean, like, we can't make you actors. You have to put in the work. We can't. None of us believe that you'll get the gig just because of the number of followers you have.
Right.
That will certainly help.
Yeah.
Did films cast some of these guys who weren't actors, but the filmmakers were hoping, the producers were hoping, the studios were hoping. Yes, I don't think that's a sustainable model.
Yeah, but actually, what happens then? Are there implications of having social media stars on board at a time when they also tend to fall a lot in trouble and there is intense scrutiny? Is there an implication? Are there consequences then? Are you guys more on the edge because it is a volatile, tricky market?
Yes, it's today everyone is offended very easily, and the idea of being an influencer, being a creator is again, it's about it. You're meant to lean into your authenticity, and if your authentic self is someone who is irreverent and fires their mouth off and says things that are funny but can be construed as rude and impolite, then what do you do? And I think that is, with every passing day, you're realizing that you have to mind your P's and Q's. But honestly, I think it's something that, of course, we as an agency, I wouldn't say grapple with, but have to be concerned about. But I think the creators or the influencers are grappling with it themselves.
Yeah.
I think the way forward, and I don't know whether the word is unfortunately, is going to be self-censorship. It's going to be about being careful, because it's no longer just about will you be cancelled. It's a threat to your life now.
Yeah.
You, and the thing is, we can sit here and talk about artistic freedom and freedom of speech, but I think, that's idealistic. Practically, you want to work, you want to earn a living, you want to be alive. Make smart choices.
Yeah. Is there something you would like to change about the system as of now? Something you wish changes soon for the better?
I wish actors were a little more realistic and a little less delusional, and a little bit more realistic and self-aware. I think that they are. I think they have perspective when needed, but I think a little bit more sharpening of that sort of self-awareness would be great. It's also important to understand, it would be great if every actor knew exactly where they stand in the scheme of things, because then you have ambition is not a bad thing, delusion is. To be ambitious and to want more and to want bigger is absolutely right. But to question why you haven't got something without accepting that you haven't yet earned it. There's a journey that you have to take. You get to a place. And I think that understanding that would be helpful. That's if you're asking it just in our jobs I think actors are very smart people. I don't think they get enough credit for how smart they are. But when you're not getting what you want, I think it's important to understand why, and understand that doesn't mean you'll never get it. It only means you have to work just that little bit harder. You have to work just that little bit longer, and put in the work to be able to to get to the place that you want to. And that, I think, is also the role that we play. A, helping them understand that, and B, helping them achieve that.
I'd like to end by asking, Kim recently said that Ori was a social media experiment, if that's the right word that I'm using. Like you just sort of try and see how that plays out. How's it like with him, and how do you sort of look at the curiosity that he's generated over clearly over a year and a half? What's the Ori experiment like?
I think he's a mystery. I think that's what she was trying to say. I think that he's a mystery, and I think we've kept that enigma going on. And I think a lot of credit to Ori also, because the kind of person that he is. And I think that's what I was saying, that today this whole the youth is so. I think we're also talking to many youths. I think there are so many buckets within the younger section where. You have to have your ear on the ground, and I think Ori does have a finger on the pulse in that sense, and he's been able to keep that enigma, and he's been able to do this, and I think we are all talking about him because he has been able to do this successfully. With a few controversies here and there.
That's okay. That's manageable. Guys, thank you so much for talking to me, and I'm truly looking forward to many more. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Hi, I'm Uday Singh Gauri.
And I'm Rajeev Masand, and you're watching us on The Hollywood Reporter India.
Please subscribe.